All right, here we go. So files. Made it to lesson 7, final real lesson of this course. I do have a lesson 8, which is a lot of like extra stuff, where to go next, um, fun little projects you could do with Python and what we learned up till now, and of course more about the final. But right now we're on lesson 7, and the big takeaway here is how to work with files. Um, it talks about some databases and some pickles too. We'll talk about those next week. I just want to focus on files this evening. Uh, think about a file on your workstation, right? Let me open up an, a little, just a folder in my machine here and check, go to my downloads. So you see all these downloads. You see users backslash downloads folder. These are all files. Each file is an object. Well, date modified is an attribute of that object. Type is an attribute of that object. Size is an attribute of that object. You go into properties and there's more, right? There's advanced attributes, hidden, all this stuff, file for archiving. You could mark it for deletion, mark it for backup. You can compress it. You could do all this fun stuff. The access control lists on it, the ACLs, more details about it, the type, folder path, owner, computer that it's on. All these are attributes of a file object. Previous versions, if there were any. And you could access all these attributes through Python, which is cool. So you really don't have to go hunting for anything. You can just use Python to find everything, or to alter everything, or to open everything. And let's just dive right into it. Have a blast with this. So let me see. So this is a bunch of random commands that we're going to cover. I already went ahead and ran them. So there's one key function called open. If you do help on open, you're going to see there's 193 lines, built-in function, open module, open likes a file object, different types of modes. That's mode equals R for read mode, which is default. Buffering equals -1, encoding, errors none. All these fun other things you could do, open or none. You could read about all this fun stuff, but basically what we're going to use is file and mode. Different modes, R for read, W for write, X for create a new file, and open it for writing. That's kind of cool. Kill two birds, one stone. A, open, append it, add stuff to the end. B is binary mode. Sometimes when you work with configuration data, the file might be a bin file. Text mode is, of course, default mode. Let's see, open a disk file or for updating, a lot of ISOs or stuff like that. I don't think I've ever used this, to tell you the truth. Universal new line mode, deprecated. So, and I've never used that either because it's deprecated. Still available, but deprecated. And you can read through all this fun stuff, or we can just go ahead and do it, which we'll go ahead and do. Go ahead and run it again. So right off the bat, I use fin for file in. Your book uses it too, so I use it. In reality, it's just a variable name. You call it whatever you want. Doesn't matter. fin is kind of a standard for file in, right? So what I want you to think about is when you open a file on your machine. So you type in the words open, you give it now this file words is in the same directory as this lesson. So what do I mean by that? Let's see. Here this thing is. Words is right here. If it's in the same directory, you don't have to give it the absolute path. You don't have to go C : whack, 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 walk the whole path. If it's in the same directory, you can call it up by name. Because Python initially looks in the same directory as your module or Python file. So open words, text, defaults in read mode, and then I say print file in. Well, I don't get anything. It's an input-output wrapper from a text input-output wrapper. The name of the file is words.txt. It opened in read mode, and here's the encoding. But I don't get anything back, right? Like, well, what did you do? Well, I opened the file. I made it available for me to read. All I did was open it. I didn't read it yet. Now, think about when you open a notepad file. You open notepad first, or you double click the file. The file then opens up notepad, which then opens up your file, and then displays it on the screen for you to read. You have to do that in Python. Manually. Usually. Unless you're writing to a file you don't care, which I do a lot of, right? So let's go back to some simple things of length. I create a simple variable or a simple string object, call it stuff. I get the length of stuff. And what does it do here? Length stuff, blah, blah, blah. Well, I print 1, 2. Here's my print stuff. I print 1 and 2. But then give me the length of stuff. Well, there's 1, 2, 3 objects and stuff. I get 3 back. Now we open this file called words, and I said length of fin. Well, it doesn't have a length because it's just the input-output wrapper. We didn't read it yet. I can't give you a length if I haven't read it yet. Makes sense. So let's take another look at combine a bunch of stuff we learned so far. So we're going to open the same file again. Go ahead and do this. Go ahead and open the same file again. I'm going to set my counter to 0. Now I'm going to say for each line in file in, add 1 to the counter, line count, count. Okay, let's see how this goes. Let me get rid of this. So I have 113,809 lines in this file. Okay. I opened it, and I just said for each item in my file, count plus 1. Each item in the file, it counts a new line, a \n. Every hard return, it counted 1. So in essence, I have 113,809 lines. Doesn't know what's on those lines. It just counted the hard returns, so I have 113,000 of them. Didn't do anything fancy yet. I just opened it, called it file in. No big deal, right? Let's get rid of that. So now we're going to talk about a method that a file object has called readLine. I'm going to open words. I'm going to take my open file. I'm going to pass it the method readLine. And then I'm going to run readLine a couple times. Well, the first line it reads, space AA space JJJJJ. Next line it reads, next line it reads, next line, so on and so forth. It's a dictionary file. Well, as hard returns. Well, remember, print ends with a new line. So you have this blank line every time. Kind of ugly. It's a method called readLine. It reads one line at a time. It'll pick up where it left off and keep going. Not entirely handy, but sort of cool, right? So now I'm going to open up words. I'm going to read the line. And now I'm going to read the very first line. I'm going to say strip. Ooh, remember all these fun string methods we learned in lesson 5? Oh, a new line is nothing more than a string of text. And here you could use all the methods that work on strings for your text. Super cool, right? So you don't have to relearn a lot of stuff. Because now you notice that there's no hard return after the line, and there's no space in front of it. Because strip does what? It removes leading white space and ending white space. Handy. So what's old is new again, right? So here we're going to open the file. For each line in fin, line strip, print the word. See how this goes. I'm not going to go through all 113,000 of them. But you see what it does here. it starts to rotate through the line objects for each line in my file, strip the beginning and ending white space, and print the word. Perfect. So this is a low budget way to read a file. Well, to view it. I'll say that, to print the screen for now. Now there's more. So we're going to open Words 2. Words 2 is a little smaller than Words. It's in the same directory, so I don't have to give it the absolute path. You notice that there's read lines. We stopped using read line, which is one line at a time, and now we're basically going to read all the lines in from the file all at once. Be careful with this. If you go to read lines and your file is 6 gigs in size, and you have 8 gigs on your laptop and 4 gigs are being ran by the OS, you only have 4 left, you may crash your system if you attempt to use or open a file that's larger than your available RAM. Keep that in mind, right? So we're going to go ahead and open this file, read lines, store it in Words 2. We're going to print the words, we're going to get the length, and then we're going to call on slicing or indexing, right? It all works. Everything we've learned before works with this type of object because it's a string. One thing I want you to see here is when I print out words, it's every line with the hard return given back to us in a list. Could be handy. We know how to manipulate lists from the prior lesson. And right here I say length of words. It tells me 15. Well, 0, there's 14 objects. 0 through 14 is 15. But you see that we're able to use length now, but we couldn't before. Well, fin is the IO wrapper. Words read in all the lines, and now it's a text object, which is now a list. So length works on a list. That's why I got 15. And here we say, of my list, give me the index of 13. Well, there's 13. 0, 14, minus 1, 13 is right here. And that's what we get printed on the screen, along with the hard return. So a lot of the fun tricks we know, you know how to manipulate a text file. Right? Let's leave that there. Let's take out this one and the last one. So here we go again. Open up Words 2. There's also read. So what's the difference between read line and read? Well, read attempts to read the entire thing. Read lines, read everything that's a new line and store it as a line. Here we have fin words, length of words, 98. Hold on here. Read, not read line. Let's take a look at Words 2. I'm going to open up the actual file so you can take a look at it. It's 1 kilobyte, right? Pretty small. Did I double click it? Where'd it go? Boop, Words 2. It's here somewhere. Put it somewhere. I can't even open it. It's funny. Close it. Try it again. Let's do it the long way. Wow, where's Notepad? It is not any of my screens. Wonder if it's picking up another screen somewhere. More than likely. It's a great demo, huh? Demo gods are not with me.
Since we got a second while you're trying to find your notepad, question, how, or I guess not how, but let's say like real world like demonstration, like will we use like, sorry, I'm all over the place.
Oh, go ahead.
Like why would we need to open up the file in Python versus like just opening Notepad like normal? Like what's the real world?
Well, first, it's faster. Second, you don't need Notepad or Word or anything. You could just open the file inside of memory and look for what you want in there.
Okay.
The real world examples that come up to where we open up an exchange log and we hunt down people's email addresses without ever opening the file.
Oh, okay.
And
Interesting.
you could do larger things in memory than, because think of it, when you open up Notepad, Notepad uses memory. And then the file you open uses more memory. The less
Right.
you open, the faster and more resources you have available to you, right?
Okay. Sorry for getting ahead. I was
Oh
just
no, I'm
curious.
glad you asked because it's coming.
Okay.
It's gonna be fun. It's really cool actually, but I think we'll get there. Yeah, it's about 5 minutes away. It'll be cool.
Okay.
So here's our words too. I shortened it. I just grabbed the first 15 lines, right? Now I used read instead of read lines or read line. Read brings it all in, but it reads each individual character to include hard returns. So now when I say slice it 3 to 20, it'll start at the third character and go to the 20th. And you see right here, it starts at AAH and it stops there. It starts to 0, 1, 2. Well, it doesn't do that. It actually starts at 1, 2, 3's hard return. So it starts right here. It goes to 20, which is right there. And that's how I get delivered by 3 through 20. Read reads each individual character or each individual string. It's not a line, right? Pretty wild stuff. Pretty cool. So there is some difference between methods. Let me find the next note thing. We'll tear off into it. Yeah, we're diving into it right here. So since files are objects, and predominantly when you create data, you create a file object of some sort somewhere, right? Now, this particular file I'm going to open is mbox text. When you start working with files, it's important to take a look at the sizes or at least understand the data you're working with, right? Mbox text is 6.6 meg. Well, if an entire dictionary is 1.1 meg, an entire this log of exchange mailbox transmissions is 6 times larger than a dictionary. So it's a lot of text, right? And if our 1.1 meg file was 113,000 lines, this thing's probably well over 600,000 lines. So when you start to take into account how big data is and how much data you can actually fit in a small 6 meg file, you're not going to want to open up files and use Control F and find it and look for it. It's faster just to go to Python, open the file, use find in a quick loop that you have, and get your answer. Like here, we're going to open this 6 meg file, store it in file in. For each line in file, check it out. Starts with from, print the line. I only want my from. Cool. Crystal clear, you can see it. Well, it has those spaces. Well, just like last time, let's get rid of them. How you gotta do it? We're gonna strip it. Open up the file, store it in fin. For each line in fin, line equals line.strip, which will remove any leading and ending spaces. And we only want, if line starts with from, print it. Well, now we have our output cleaner, more together. Now, we could do a couple things here. We could output this to another file, then remove duplicates. So we only have individuals who sent us mail, right, from, which is pretty cool. If you're hunting down a spam sender or something like that, a phishing attempt. So here, we open the file again from each, do our strip, Now I'm saying if line not starts with colon from continue, else print the line. This is just backwards logic of if it starts with from print. That's all it is. We're erring on the side of caution here that there's more lines that are not starting with from, and then just print the from lines. That's all this logic is. Sort of cool. Let's take a look at this. We're going to open it up, set a counter. We're going to say from each line in my file in, strip it. If, now this is awesome because there's a find method. Well, we know that because find was about strings. If line find this domain is equal to -1. Remember, when you use find, if it doesn't find it, it returns you a -1 for a false. So if it cannot find it, if find returns a -1, keep going. Else, line, print the line, add 1 to the counter. So this will, every time it actually does find it, it'll add 1 to the counter. Not equal to -1, right? So this will rip through this. We'll just let it run through. Just kidding. That'll drive me crazy. But here it's printing the line, and at the end it'll print the counter. Do I have a mailbox too? We can cut it short. Yep, sure do. So this is a cool thing too, because now I can just do mailbox 2, right? F5, let it run. Only had 1. Let's check out mailbox 2. Ooh, this is crazy. I might have to reboot. I can't open up anything in Notepad. Story of my life. Well, they upgraded Notepad to that new tab Notepad, so now it's really like a web browser. It's really irritating. But anyway, you get the drift here. So if find equals -1, in other words, if you don't have this in your line, continue, else add 1 to the counter. And here you can see from that line that it found it, printed it, added 1 to our counter, and that's it. We can get even more savage with this stuff, which we're going to. And this is all the beginning of how to manipulate files. I know a lot of you create files and you probably scratch your head going, oh man, I'm never going to use this. Well, every time you create a new Python file, I have you be very stingy with the naming structure because it matters. Because you could use it to your advantage when you write code. Like this, file name equals input, enter the file name you want to input. Then I could open that file, default in read mode. Set a counter. I could run through the whole thing. Let's run through this. I'm going to say I'm not going to change to a different path. I'm going to stay in this directory. I'm going to use mbox2.txt. I'm going to hit enter. Now there are 0 subject lines in mbox2. Well, let's take a look at that. Well, I can't open it because my machine needs to bounce, but I can open it in PowerShell, I bet. Mbox2. Come on. Oh, now it won't even open it. Why won't it open it? Anybody know? Because I clicked the wrong file. Here we go. So you notice there's no subject line in here. It's just a from, received, open. Now I'm going to open up mbox1. Remember, it's a 6 meg file. Watch how long this takes. Not too bad. I got a boatload of memory on this sucker, right? But you see that this file, 6.6 meg, is over 130,000 lines long. Tons of text. Well, let's count the subject lines in that. How long do you think it'll take?
Like nothing.
Yeah, Inbox text, enter file name, hit enter. It's done.
Yeah.
Python could match over almost 10 million strings a second now. So it literally looked for each line in my file. If it starts with subject, if it doesn't start with subject, continue. If it does, add one to the counter, and then print out my counter. So nearly 1,800 lines, 18 line subjects that start with subject it found. So that tells me that I have at least 1,800 email messages, well, 1,700 messages that say subject in it, that have a subject line. Well, most emails do have a subject line. So you could analyze and think constructively that you have 1,797 emails. Cool. Now, are they from or sends or returns? Or you don't know. You just know that you have that many subject lines. You don't know if they're different. You just know that they all start with subject. Cool. But faster than I could open Notepad or faster than I could open up that file or find it, I could run this script, type in the name, and be done. And I hope you understand that. You know, that's the point of scripting, right? Be more automagic. Now, but wait, there's more. Right? There's always more. Get rid of this one. So class output.text. This is important. We're going to bounce around to the directory here a little bit. So let's go to lesson 7. Class output.text. I'm going to say class output.text test. In this directory, class output.text test does not exist. Do we agree?
Yes.
If you open a file and it doesn't exist, it creates it. Pretty cool. That's handy. As long as you have read write capabilities to the directory you're in, you can create, or the directory where you want your file to be created in. As long as you have permissions to write and read a file to that directory, you can by simply opening the file. It'll create a brand new empty file. Sweet. That's handy. Let's do this. So now I'm going to just create a string variable called line1. This here's the waddle, right? More Monty Python stuff. Fout is already my class output. I'm going to write the line, grab this string, write to line 2, and then here's the important part. I'm going to close the file. When you're done with the file, you have to close it. Makes sense. You do that in real life, right? Fout not found. Well, that's because I commented this out already. Boom, boom, done. Faster than I could even do anything. Let's go back to PowerShell and open that up. Now, you know that it was written to because it's 1 kilobyte. There's at least something there, and Windows rounds it up. So there's something in that file. Now, let's create a new file here. Let's create a new file called test2. It created it. But you notice test2 is empty. It's 0 kilobits. We didn't write anything to it. So that's important to understand as well. Right? Let's take a look how we did with our class output test1. So did exactly that. Wrote line 1, wrote line 2. Then I closed it. Perfect. If we didn't close it, I wouldn't be able to open it and read it. It would say files in use by another program, right? Which you get sometimes. So we closed it. All this is fun. Well, let's do some more. Let me see where I want to close here. I'm going to open it, write it, close it, open it. We'll do this whole thing right here. So here we created a list, line 1, line 2, line 3. I'm going to open class output. We'll say test3 doesn't exist. It'll create it. It'll write lines. There's a write lines method. It'll find these hard returns, only the first one, and write those lines. Then it'll close the file. And then it'll open the file in read. This is important that I do this, right? It'll open the file in read mode, and then for each line in my file output, print a line. And there we go. Created the file, wrote to it. Line 1, hard return. Line 2, line 3. And then we're done. Well, it's open. Can I open it here? Now, Python's came a long way. They'll probably let you open it now because they do some things with closure under the scenes, but back in the day, it was just test3. It lets you open it here too. Back in the day, it would complain that it was still in use, right? Good practice to close. Every time you perform a task, close the file. Cool, that's a fun one. Well, now let's append some stuff. Let's create a file called append1. We're going to open it in append mode. So what does that mean? Well, you're right to the end of it. Well, there's nothing in it. So we're going to write a line called I'm a lumberjack. We're going to use the write method. And we're going to write line, write line, write line, write line, write line. Then we're going to close the file. And then we're going to open it and take a look at it. That was quick. Open, close, done, right? So we called this append1. Here's append1. It's 1 kilobyte. So it was created at 7:08 and written to. And right here. And it wrote it 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 times. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 times. Awesome. Append writes to the end. Now, if you open a file that already exists in write mode and you start writing to it, it will overwrite everything in it because you did not open it in append mode. That is important. If the file exists, so we're going to learn next week how to check if a file exists first. If file exists, that's exactly what it is. If file exists equal true, open in append mode, else open, because that'll create the file in write mode for you. Right? All these little things matter, right? So this is a fun one. So we're going to open append, we're going to open the append1. We're going to open it in append mode, and we're going to add an I'm okay to it, then we're going to close it. Something happened, right? Well, it's right here, right? Append1. What if I hit F5? Nothing. I'll close it. I'll open it. And it did indeed add an I'm okay in append mode. Cool. Handy, right? Let's see what else we got. File open. We'll cover lists, dictionaries. We'll do writing file. That's us now. We'll do lists and dictionaries next week, along with the group activity. There's a lot to learn with files. Read, which reads it in as all as characters. Read line, read lines. Write, write lines. There is a write lines, but we'll cover that. And open. Now, there's a newer way to open a file. It's been around for a while. Since Python 3.6, I think. Maybe even earlier. But it's called with. So the basic uses, this is more common too. And what you get with, you get a free close. So it closes the file for you when you're out of the script block. So the minute that this is done, it goes back over to left and does something. Right here, it'll close your file for you. So with is pretty handy. So basic usage is use with an expression and you have it as a variable. So as a variable. So instead of writing fin equals open this or this file with pen mode, you simply write with open the file you want to open, as long as it's in the same directory, the mode you want to open it in, as file in, and then file in, write, be used with, test, right? Done, dunzo, words 2. Let's do words test. Let's say alpha. I'll do that. We'll go and open the file. See that it created it. A words test. It's 1 kilobit. It was written to. I'll reboot after this, right? Yep, we used with. Perfect. You notice the hard return in front of it. I gave it the hard return. It put a hard return. It wrote we used with, closed it for us, and it's all good. Anything we've done, now you could grab your data or input from someone and send it to another file. You can now create data all day long. Pretty cool. Now you could read data in all day long. Like instead of creating a dictionary from your state's abbreviations, you could have read that file in, create a dictionary on the fly, and just you left it as a variable to check it instead of cutting and pasting it and adding to your code. Also, reading in files shortens your code, right? Isn't that cool stuff? And that's about it for opening files and writing and reading and the modes, which you have read, write, and append mode. Of course, read mode you can't write because you're only reading. So it's pretty cool stuff. I'm going to end it there. I'm going to end the recording.